and then pounding with the edge of your fists. These are obviously more stimulating movements that stimulate the sensory nerve endings, so if you're performing a purely relaxation massage, these techniques could be omitted. And then just some linking effleurage. And then another technique called vibrations. This is an oscillating movement where you're just using your fingers to just lightly tremble, working up the erector spinae muscle to clear the nerve pathways, and then come back down. So it's important with vibrations not to make it an exaggerated movement, so it's a deeper tremble rather than a superficial one. So it's a fine oscillating movement. And then as we're progressing towards the end of the back sequence, I'm going to go back to our effleurage in 3 different branches. Becoming more superficial. And then the concluding movement, just using that middle phalanx, your fingers, just draw your fingers just one either side of the spine, one over the top of the other, just alternately, just stroking down and just fading away as you come down. And then just hold your hands there at the end before you then cover the client's back up. We're now ready to commence the back of the leg massage. We're going to commence with some superficial strokes down from the thigh down towards the ankle to apply the oil. And then commencing with an effleurage movement, so we're going to come up back of the calf, round, and then increase the pressure as you come up to the back of the thigh. Use a superficial stroke to come down the sides of the leg. And sweep back down. So as we come up to the back of the knee, we're just going round, so we're not pressing on the back of the knee. And then deep effleurage to the thigh only. So really lunge there so that you're using your body weight. And then lifting. So you're coming from the sides to the centre. And then palmar kneading. Across the hamstrings, on the back of the thigh. And then ringing. So you're really lifting and twisting the muscles. And then to potement, so hacking. cupping. And you can also perform beating and pounding if required. And then sweep down to the lower leg to effleurage. And then skim rolling, so supporting one side of the calf, and then use the thumb muscle of the other hand to roll one of the bellies of gastrocnemius, one of the large parts of the calf muscle, away from the centre. And then thumb slide in between the bellies of the gastrocnemius, so using your thumbs to come up in between where the muscle splits there, and then down with a superficial stroke. And then just kneading around the Achilles tendon, thumbs and the fingers. And then concluding with some superficial effleurage, indicating that that part's coming to a close. And then just holding the hands on the sole of the foot before then covering up the back of the leg. Commencing the back of the other leg by applying the oil in sweeping strokes from the back of the thigh down to the back of the ankle, and then starting with effleurage up the back of the calf, round, and then increasing the pressure as you get up to the thigh, going down the sides of the leg with a superficial stroke. So we're coming round the back of the knee, so we're not putting on any pressure there. Remember to lunge, so you've got one foot in front of the other, so that you can keep your back as straight as possible. And then effleurage to the thigh only, so the hamstring muscles. And then lifting the sides to the centre. And then palmar kneading across the hamstrings. And then ringing. So you're really lifting and twisting muscles. And then supplement. King. Cupping. And you can also perform beating and pounding, provided there's sufficient tissue density. And then then we're going to sweep down to the lower leg. Effleurage, and then support one side and then use your thumb muscle to roll one side of the gastrocnemius muscle, using the other hand to steady the leg. And then swap to the other side. And then thumb slide to the bellies of the gastrocnemius. Finger or thumb need around the Achilles, before concluding with effleurage to the whole of the leg, becoming more superficial, indicating that that part's coming to a close. And finishing with the hands on the soles of the feet. So commencing the front of the leg massage with superficial stroking from the thighs right down to the toes to apply the oil. And then effleurage coming up either side of the lower leg, taking care not to press firmly on the tibia shaft, round the patella, and then increase the pressure on the thigh, superficial strokes coming down the side. So starting off superficially and then gradually increasing the pressure into a deep effleurage movement. And then deep effleurage to the thigh only, with quadriceps muscles. Lifting sides to the centre. Palmar kneading across all the muscle groups, so the adductors on the inside of the thigh, the quadriceps, and the abductors on the lateral aspect. And then ringing, so you're lifting and squeezing the muscles. So it's a more vigorous method of kneading. And then to potement, so hacking, tapping. And also beating and pounding should there be sufficient tissue density. And then coming from the back of the knee up to lift the hamstring muscles. So it's a deep stroke up from the back of the knee, lifting up towards the gluteal fold and down again. So you're stroking up the back of the hamstring. Deep stroking around the patella. And then finger knead or thumb knead around the patella. You can either use the thumbs or the fingers. And then down, effleurage to the lower leg. And then on the lateral aspect of the lower leg is the tibialis anterior muscle. So we're going to knead down that muscle. And we're going to slide the prop down to just above the ankle. So we're going to thumb knead or finger knead to the Achilles tendon. So all around the back of the heel. And then thumb knead around the anterior of the ankle joint. And then with one hand at the top and one hand at the bottom, you're going to effleurage the foot, as if you're sandwiching the foot between your hands, down to the heel, and then back up again, so it's a firm stroke down. And more superficial as you come back up. And then thumb knead to the metatarsal spaces on the top of the foot. And then use the palm of your hand to stroke firmly into the sole of the foot, whilst the other hand just supports the toes and the feet. And then thumb knead down the arch, the medial longitudinal arch of the foot. So using your thumb to knead and then using the edge of your hand just to stroke firmly into the arch. And then scissor to the sole of the foot, so you're using your fingers to support on the front, and then your thumbs are pressing firmly, crossing over one another, down towards the heel. When you get down to the heel, link your fingers together and squeeze back up again. And then brisk rubbing to the medial and the lateral aspects of the foot before returning to superficial effleurage movement to the whole of the leg, incorporating the foot to indicate that this part is coming to a close. Finishing by sandwiching the foot and then covering the leg. So commencing the front of the other leg, applying the oil in sweeping strokes from the thigh down to the foot, and then commencing with effleurage. So you're going to come up, being careful not to place too much pressure over the anterior of the lower leg, it's quite unsupported by tissue, round the patella and then up to the thigh, back down with a superficial stroke. Gradually increasing the pressure. And then deep effleurage to the thigh only. So working mainly on the quadriceps muscles. And then lifting the sides to the centre. And then kneading, flat-handed kneading. So you can work over all the muscle groups here, so the quadriceps, the adductors on the medial aspect of the thigh, and then to the abductors on the lateral aspect, and then wringing, lifting, squeezing, into potement, hacking, beating and pounding. And a deep stroke to the hamstring, so you're coming from the back of the knee, sweeping up towards the gluteal fold, hands coming forwards. Deep stroke around the patella. Thumb or finger knead around the patella. Deep effleurage to the lower leg. Just being careful not to press too firmly on the shaft of the tibia. And then thumb kneading to the tibialis anterior muscle, which is on the lateral aspect of the lower leg. so the outside. So kneading with the thumbs down towards the ankle and then sweep back up again. Prop down to just above the ankle and then finger or thumb knead around the Achilles. Thumb knead around the anterior of the ankle joint. One hand on the top of the foot, one hand on the bottom, sandwiching the foot, so it's deep effleurage. Stroke firmly as you go down towards the ankle and then back up again with a superficial stroke. Kneading in between the metatarsal spaces on the top of the foot. And then holding and linking your fingers on the top of the foot, using the thumbs to scissor down towards the heel, linking the fingers and then squeezing back up. Brisk rubbing to the medial and lateral aspects of the foot. And then concluding with superficial effleurage to the whole of the leg, incorporating the foot. Leading by sandwiching the foot. So commencing the hand and arm massage by applying the oil in sweeping strokes, the top of the shoulder down to the fingers. Just pull the arm slightly away from the body. So we're going to do alternate effleurage, coming up the medial aspect, and then changing your supporting hand to come up the lateral aspect. So one hand is always supporting at the wrist. And then deep effleurage around the posterior fibres of the deltoid, followed by finger kneading. So deep stroke, followed by finger kneading, and then across the anterior fibres and the middle fibres, and then followed by finger kneading. Deep stroke and finger knead. Palmar kneading to the upper arm. working mainly on the biceps muscle. Swap your supporting hand to palm and aid to the triceps.